Let me tell you a story. So I'm hunting down these orc war chiefs, there's 4 of them, and it's going alright, but there's one war chief whose identity is a complete mystery to me. The literal only thing I know about him is that his bodyguard is a captain named Ogthrak Prison Master, who's an orc who had actually killed me earlier in the game and had been rewarded for killing me with a promotion to war chief bodyguard. So I decided that it's a good time to finally hunt down and kill Ogthrak. I'd be knocking down a war chief bodyguard and finally getting my revenge at the same time, so I'd be killing 2 birds with 1 stone. Unfortunately, I don't know what Ogthrak's exact weaknesses are, but that's easy enough to solve. I just start looking for orcs who look like they might have intel on him. I find one quickly enough, but right before I discover him, I myself am discovered by an extremely dangerous animal called a Caragor. I move myself to high ground immediately to get out of harm's way, but the problem with me doing that is that the Caragor immediately starts attacking the pack of orc I'd chosen, including my would-be snitch. I immediately start firing arrows into the Caragor trying to kill it before it kills my guy, but I quickly decide that rather than kill it, it'd be faster and safer to hop on its back and tame it. I get in position to do it and make my leap, but the moment I do, 3 more Caragors roll up and just start decimating the orcs, including my snitch. All of them die almost instantly, and I start riding my new mount to the human slave camp where Ogthrak is posted up, figuring it'd be more efficient to just get the information about him while I'm already there. Sure enough, I find another snitch, but he's flanked on both sides by 2 orcs, and they're all right dead in the center of the camp. A camp, by the way, that is teeming with orcs, so stealth isn't really going to be an option on interrogating this guy. I quickly dispose of the 2 orcs nearest him with a bow, but I'm sloppy in executing the second one and draw the attention of Ogthrak himself, who mocks me for having killed me once before.
So we're gonna go through it all again, are we?
Sensing that I'm getting low on time, I sprint towards the snitch, tackle him, and use my wraith powers to read his mind, wherein I discover that Ogthrak is vulnerable to, among other things, arrows to the head. I hop out of the lowly orc's mind and stab him through the eyes, only to look up and discover that Ogthrak is now charging directly at me, causing me to panic and put an arrow through his head, all of which takes place in less than a second. Boom, mission accomplished, the bodyguard is dead, except for that the bodyguard was also the only person nearby who could have told me the identity of the war chief he was protecting. As I begin fleeing the increasingly high alert camp to regroup and figure out my next course of action, I'm spotted by yet another captain, Tumhorn the Tracker, another guy whose weaknesses I know absolutely nothing about. He chastises me for attempting to run away, and I start attacking him, trying to get his health low enough to interrogate him about the war chief, while also thinning out the numbers of surrounding guys that will keep me from interrogating him successfully. Unfortunately, the orcs begin showing up faster than I can get rid of them, and before I know it, I'm standing on a roof fighting dozens of orcs at once, and Tumthorn has managed to heal himself back up somehow. I begin running away to regroup again, but while running, I greedily spot the reward that I failed to pick up that I got for executing Ogthrak, and as I stop to grab it, suddenly my chest is pierced from across the camp by an arrow fired by a low-ranking nobody whose name is apparently Ulthug, who is immediately promoted from a nameless thug to a captain upon my death.
I'm looking forward to being a captain.
To me, this sequence of events is the perfect example of what makes Shadow of Mordor so special and easily one of my favorite games I've played this year. In so many games, the enemies you kill are these identical, disposable, nameless, faceless non-characters, but in Shadow of Mordor, everybody you fight potentially matters, even if it's just some random orc who gets a lucky hit on you from across the map. All of a sudden, he's a character in your story, and he's an unpredictable player in a revenge tale that could end any of countless ways. It's a brilliant system, and everywhere you look in Shadow of Mordor, you'll see these just hundreds of tiny little design decisions Monolith made that resulted in this system being so much more than just a good idea. It's no secret that Shadow of Mordor borrows heavily from the combat in Rocksteady's Batman games, and I'm just not talking like X to attack, Y to counter. I mean virtually everything from the precise button combos you use to execute, to double tapping A to backflip over an enemy's head, to a skill tree that lets you, for example, reduce the execution requirement from an 8-move combo to a 5-move combo. All of it is lifted directly, some might even say shamelessly, from the Arkham series. The thing is, there's allegedly a very, very good and very plausible reason for this. Avid listeners of the Giant Bombcast may remember an email from the podcast's June 3rd episode that offered up one very good possible explanation for the similarity. Quote, Shadow of Mordor has Batman combat because it started out as a Batman game in the Christopher Nolan universe, according to a close friend of mine at WB Monolith who's working on it. Mr. Nolan's side reportedly changed its mind and told them to stop making the game, so they salvaged as much as they could. Now, if this is true, and if Shadow of Mordor was originally supposed to be a Batman game, it suddenly makes the overt combat similarities make a lot more sense, doesn't it? Both the Arkham games and Shadow of Mordor are published by Warner Brothers Interactive Entertainment, so even if it does look a little weird at first blush, it's really no different than, say, Ubisoft putting that last known position stealth mechanic in virtually every single third-person stealth game they've released over the past 2 years. But there's something I think is even more noteworthy about the combat, and that's that Shadow of Mordor is the first ever non-Batman game to get it exactly right. This is not the first game to clone Arkham Asylum's combat, remember. Sleeping Dogs, Rise, Captain America, Super Soldier, those are all examples, but this is the first game to execute it in a way that feels just as solid, fluid, and satisfying as in any Batman game, if not more so. I think I actually part ways with a lot of critics who've dismissed Shadow of Mordor's combat as merely competent. The action and stealth gameplay are, I think, damn near perfect, and the addition of new things like the bow, the wraith powers, the mounts, all these things elevate the experience, and I think it'd actually be worth playing even without the Nemesis system, which, oddly enough, is actually going to be missing entirely from the PS3 and 360 versions of the game. Still, even with everything else that's great about Shadow of Mordor, the Nemesis system is what shines brightest about the game, and I can already tell that's going to be remembered as one of my personal favorite new game mechanics in years. The Nemesis system would have been an easy thing to get wrong, and even if they'd gotten it right, it wouldn't have mattered if the gameplay fell flat. Shadow of Mordor is one of those rare games where everything, all of it, just falls into place perfectly, making a game that is pretty near impossible to put down and extremely easy to recommend. I give it a 5. No, I'm just kidding. Whoa, that kind of turned into a review at the end, huh? Weird. That is not what I was planning this video to be, but that's fine. Hey, also, speaking of reviews, it's getting to be the time of year where games are coming out again, so expect a ton more reviews from myself, from Tara, maybe even some new faces if we can make that happen. Just, yeah, there's a lot to look forward to. But back to Shadow of Mordor for a second. Now, I obviously love the game, but I want to know what you guys think too, so you can leave a comment down below and I will read it. I read every comment, I promise, even the shitty ones. If you also want to talk to me outside of the conversational hellscape that is YouTube comments, you can find me on Twitter. I'm at Babylonian over there. But anyways, yeah, thank you guys for letting me ramble about Shadow of Mordor for a few minutes. And honestly, thank you guys for sticking around on the channel for this long. We've got some really, really, truly exciting stuff brewing on the channel over the next few months, and I can't wait to share it with the rest of you. But yeah, see you guys next time.
But you guys have been very insistent about the fact that this is not a historical documentary. It's more of a stylized, personalized version of events. How do you sort of stylize something like this? How do you reconcile realism with stylization, and where do you draw inspiration from?
We mainly draw inspiration from